Hi, I'm Marcel. I've got a 2016 WRX. I've not been that impressed with the speakers and sound system, so I'd like to replace them with an aftermarket model. So in this video I'm going to show you how to replace the speakers that are in the door. This also ought to work on the 2015 model, as they're basically the same. Maybe it'll work on next year's as well. Also check out my other video on how to replace the tweeters in the dash. I'll show you how this works. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is take off the door panel here. I've heard this part referred to as a door card before, and if you haven't done it before, it looks kind of scary. Refer to what you might do, but it's actually fairly simple. Most of the car, the interior tends to snap together fairly well, and so it's just a matter of unsnapping it for the most part. So that's what we're going to do here. Is basically it's hooked on across the top, and we've got a couple of screws here in these two wells, and then the rest of it just snaps going through the rest of it. The first thing we're going to do is to take out the two screws that are located at these two parts, the one here inside of the door pull, the second inside of this handle. You'll find that there are just a couple of little panels. I'll show you those. So I've got two places where there are screws holding on, so one of which is right here. The other one is in this section right here. We're going to start with this one right here. I'm going to take a flathead and a Phillips screwdriver, and what I'm going to do is put the Phillips screwdriver down for a second. Use the flathead to just give a little pry. It's just a little plastic cover holding up the screw hole. So get under this, go ahead and give it a little pry up. It should pop right up. There we go, and there's our screw. I put my flathead down for a second, and I'm going to just back out the Phillips screw. And when we get done backing it out here, I'm going to go ahead and collect the screw. I'm going to store it someplace where I don't lose it, like over here on the floor mat. And there's also that little cover that's right there. I think on this door it actually stays in on that handle. On this one over here it may want to pop out. So let's go ahead and pry this one out just a little bit. And that little flap may want to walk away. So it just came right out. So I'm just going to put that down next to my screw over there, and I'll put that back down and put it together. And let's just back the screw out. And that will come out. Let's go ahead and store that also. These two screws are the same, so it doesn't matter which one you put back and where. And now let's work on getting the door popped off. And before we pop the door off, one of the things we want to do is we want to roll the window down, because we're going to be working with this section here. It'd be a great way to stick your head through. So let's roll your window down. When you take the door off, when you unhook the wires here, you'll lose the ability to move the window up and down. So get the window down now, and that'll save you some time later. So I'm going to start off. Now we've got the screws out from here and here. We're just going to pop these poppers out, and I've got a couple of pry tools. These are some nice vinyl ones that aren't going to scratch up either the paint or the door panel here. And I'm just going to take one of these and just kind of get under it a little bit. You can either start on your side or the bottom, doesn't really matter. There's about 6 or 7 of them going around evenly. And there we go. And then now I can just get my fingers under it and just give it a pull straight out. You will have to expend some effort, and you will hear it pop. I'll have to just kind of work it around the bottom first. Do not take this rubber with you. That rubber stays on the door here. Just pop these things out, and at some point you'll feel it just on the door panel right here. There we go. Now you can see this rotates nice and freely. So I'm going to stop there for a second. I'm going to get a container we can put down here to hold our door panel while we disconnect our wiring. Okay, so just brought a toolbox down, set it under the door here. What that's going to do is it's going to help us support this door panel after we unhook it from the top, so it's not hanging on the wires. We don't want it to hang on the wires. So it'll pull on them and cause a loose connection if we're not careful. So now this is loose all the way. Just lift up, and it just comes off just like it was hooked on. And that can sit on this toolbox right there, and we're good to go. Now we're just going to move to disconnecting the wires. Okay, so now that I got the door panel off, there's basically a couple things we've got to do. One of which is we have the door pull and lock mechanism right here. Comes through on the back side to this section right here.
There are some clips right here which you could, I think, in theory pull and get off, but I found that there's a couple of screws right down here that are much easier to take off, and then this whole thing comes out pretty easily. And then you got the harness, wiring harness right here for the door lock and the power windows that we can just pull these things out, and then we can take this whole panel off and it will be free. So let's get a screwdriver, and you see the screw right here and the screw right there. Let's take those two screws out, and then we'll be able to take the whole door lock off really easily. So let's take out these two screws right here and here so we can get the door handle off from the inside. And do be aware that there's a plastic piece that goes around between both screws. We don't want to lose that. We want to retain the orientation on it. So what I like to do is go and take both screws out, take the plastic clip off, hold it in the same orientation, go ahead and slide out our door lock, let that hang down for a second, and then put this clip right back and just put the screws back in here to hold the clip in the right orientation so we don't forget what it is and so we don't lose the screws. And we just need to hand tighten these. We don't need to get the screwdriver and put them in all the way. So that's good right there. So now we've got that out of the way. Now we just have these two remaining connectors left, and then we'll have our door panel all the way free. So pushing on the latch, and then you can pull the connector out. So this one on the passenger side was on there. And for the second connector, it's a tricky one. Basically there's a little latch on the bottom. You can push in and you can slide this connector out. Now we've got our door card all the way free. Let's make it pretty easy. So I'm just going to lay this out of the way gently, where it's not going to get messed up. And we can begin our work on the actual speaker and wiring now. And now we've got the door panel off, now we can work on the actual speaker here. So first thing I'm going to do is to get the power disconnected. Speaker, there's a little clip that you got to push in on, and then you can pull it straight out. There we go. So I'm going to pull that out now. Now I've got it disconnected. And it is a little odd that the wire comes on the outside here. And we'll show you why that's a little odd here in a few minutes. So now there's 3 screws holding it in. The Phillips, I'll take these screws out. And then our speaker, our factory speaker, will be completely free to come out. I've got all 3 screws out. Again, I'm going to keep these together. I'm going to lay them down somewhere where I don't lose them, keep them together. The 2 screws I had in the back of the door handle here, I think they're the same screws, but let's not get them mixed up just in case. Now this should just slide right out after a little bit of pull. There you go. All done. So here's our factory speaker. Let's compare this to our aftermarket speaker and see what's different about them. Okay, so here's my factory unit. It's got a really small magnet in the back here, and it's also got a custom, or I should say proprietary connector for the audio cable here. Here's my aftermarket. This is I chose a Polk DXi-651S, which is a 6.5-inch slim mount coaxial speaker. Look at the difference in the size of magnets. This is just a little bit bigger magnet right here compared to this one. So I think you're going to get a lot more sound out of it, a lot more oomph from the speaker, but it's also going to take, I believe, more power to drive this. It's also going to have more of a standard connector here to work with. The 2 main issues we've got at this point is, one, this has got a mounting bracket, which is different from this one is. So the 3 screws I took out don't line up with anything on the speaker. It's outside of the diameter of the speaker. So that's going to involve either a bracket or drilling some holes in the metal, in the sheet metal around here to find some new holes to put into. The second thing we got to worry about is this connector as compared to this connector here. I would really love to be able to reuse the same factory connector here and just plug it into my new speaker, but it's not that doesn't come out of the box. So the way we're going to deal with that is, I've been working with order these things from Crutchfield. So here's the mounting bracket that we got. That's not a perfect fit, but it's pretty close. And so with a little bit of customization to this will work. So this will get us the holes that we can use to attach our speaker to, so we can put it in like this and then mount it up. The other thing that we can do is, because we have these little, I call them stubs, something like that, but this is our connector here, which of course doesn't line up. I've got an adapter that I also got from Crutchfield, and these adapters, these ends will go on the speaker, and then this factory part here matches it, so it will slide right on, and then we're good to go. So this little extra line will do it for us. So now comes the hardest part here, which is basically getting the bracket mounted on to our existing holes that we're going to use. It doesn't line up perfectly, so it is going to require some customization on two different ways. The first way is that when we go to line up the holes, I can only get two of them to line up. So what I'm going to do is, to keep the mounting, or to keep the door hole in the same place, I'm going to drill a new hole here on the bracket that will line up with that one. It's not going to be a perfect fit, but it's good enough because the door has plenty of room in this cavity right here. We have space to play with, so that's not going to be a problem at all. And this is just plastic. It's really easy to drill a nice big hole through it and put a new hole here, and then that'll get us to line up. The other thing that we need to do is we need to take into account that when we mount the speaker in the bracket, the cabling is going to be on the outside, whereas on this one, the cabling is going to be on the inside of the door, whereas on our factory speaker it was on the outside of the door. So once we mount this in, we've got to have a way to get our cabling from the outside to the inside of the door. So what we're going to do is basically just drill a hole right here on this side of this plastic bracket to where we can pass the cable through, and then I'll take care of it for us. So let's start on that. Alright, so I'll give you the part numbers for the speaker wire adapter and for this mounting bracket at the end of the video. So what I'm going to do is, first I need to figure out where do I need to drill a new hole in this bracket to get that third hole to line up. So on this particular one, I'm going to take the tallest part here, and that's going to be our top. And there's two choices for the top, two holes I can work with. And I notice if I use this hole on the right and put a screw in here, that I get two of my holes lined up. So let's go ahead and put the two screws in there just by hand. And that's good enough for right now. So now I can look and see where this third one's at, which is in between the two holes on this side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to eyeball it. I'm going to get a pencil, which is good enough right now. And I'm going to just kind of eyeball and guess where that hole is at, just by kind of picking up and looking at it and using a pencil to mark the outside. So now I've got my pencil. I'm going to come over here and just kind of eyeball it as best I can as to where this hole is at. Take a pencil and mark it with the kind of a circle spot there. And that's reasonably close. So now that I got that, let me go ahead and untighten the two screws here just a little bit. I remember that I got the tall end of this is going to the top, and there's going to be my hole. I can see where I wrote in the pencil. It's a little hard to see the black on black, but with the light here I can see where it reflects at. So I'm going to take a drill, and I'm going to basically drill my hole right there to get this to line up for me. So that's where I want to put my hole. So let me go get my drill. We'll drill that hole right about there, and then we'll put this back together and see how well I did. Okay, I'm back. Went ahead and drilled a new hole here. It's okay, it's kind of looks weird, but that's all right. So let's go ahead and try it out and see how close we are to get to fit. Again, as long as it doesn't need to be a nice perfect fit, as long as I can get the screws in and hold this thing steady, that's all that counts. And I think it's looking pretty good. So I'm not going to try this in all the way, I'm just going to make sure I can get it in. There we go. Alright, I can get that in. So now I've got the hole drilled okay. Now comes the second part. We need to customize this bracket just a little bit more. So you notice here's the speaker connector for the wires on the inside of the door. Here's my wire on the outside of the door. I mount this here. Now we got a problem. We got to get this thing through. So one way we can do that is to drill a hole, basically coming in this way, but we'll actually drill it over here because that's just a bit more of a natural fit where the the plug is. So we'll just drill a hole basically going in this way, a nice big one. We're not going to pass this entire cable crew through because this is kind of a big honking piece right here. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to pass these things through the hole, which are much smaller, and then we can leave the big white connectors on the outside. So we're going to go ahead and take our bracket off now that we're sure we've got the mounting holes lined up, and now we're going to drill a pass-through hole for the wiring. And if I'm smart, before I take it all the way off, I will mark with a pencil about where I want to do that. So let's do kind of right about there on that back side, or just on the left of the tall part here. So I'm going to take a nice big drill bit and put it in here and drill a hole so I can pass this wire through that hole to get it from the inside to the outside. Alright, so now here's my bracket going in here, and I've drilled a hole right there where we can take these wires and slip them right through, and that's how that'll bridge us between the inside and the outside of the door. Okay, so we're good to go there. So the next thing I want to do is go ahead and mount this into the bracket and go ahead and put the screws in here, whatever places you want to, that line up to the holes on the bracket, and get this attached as one nice solid piece. This particular speaker, I misplaced it for a moment, has a foam gasket that goes around that you put between the bracket and the back of the speaker that'll just help to absorb some of the vibration from the bass and isolate it from the door panel so you don't get boom with the door panel as you crank your tunes up. So let's go ahead and use our screws to mount the speaker to the bracket. Again, remember I've got this tall part right here that's going to be a top orientation. I don't think these speakers really have a orientation for the most part. I am going to go ahead and there are some graphics here which give you some idea about what might be up, although it probably doesn't matter, and we'll have our connectors down at the bottom here. So I'll try to find the hole that's kind of close in this range here that lines stuff up and go ahead and put in that gasket between them and put the screws in and make this one nice solid piece. And before I get this speaker mounted to the bracket, let me show you one other alternative here, and this is what I did on the rear doors. I did this differently on the front doors. Is we could potentially mount this speaker, aftermarket speaker, directly into the metal on the door. And here's how I did it on the back basically. Is I found, so this right in the hole. Now you notice that the factory holes don't line up with the aftermarket holes at all. So this speaker looks like it's smaller, or at least the bracket is smaller. There is no bracket here. If you can kind of get the center to where you want it, I kind of go around and just kind of eyeball the center. And once you're happy with it, you can take a pencil and just give a little mark in the mounting hole right there. And then on the paint, you'll be able to see that. That'll be your indicators to where to drill holes in the door panel itself. So now as I take this thing off and I look at where these holes are, it's maybe hard to see from where you're at, but these are really close to the edge right there. If I try to drill a hole right there, I'm not going to be able to get the hole in before I slip off and go inside the door here and just kind of come inside the bigger hole. So this is why I think that these mounting brackets are necessary for the front speakers, for the front doors, versus the rear doors. I had a smaller hole on the rear door, so I had enough metal I could drill in. If I was far enough away from the edge, I could get like a good hole. It's supposed to be so close to the edge there, but I'm so close to the edge in all three, there's no way to do this and still get all three pieces in a metal without kind of slipping out and doing that. So that's why I felt like the mounting brackets were necessary on the front. So now I've showed you that, let me go and mount these into the bracket. So here's my aftermarket speaker, here's my rubber bass gasket, which I'll line up the holes in a minute, and then this will go together like that, and then we'll go in. Alright, so now we've got the bracket, the gasket, and the speaker all mounted together in one nice solid piece. So at this point, what we want to do is we want to now attach our wiring. So with the hole that we drilled right here, let's go ahead and slip through the wires here, one at a time. It's too big for them to both fit through at the same time. There we go, with those two connectors. Pull it about partway through. What I like about these connectors actually is you can't get them backwards. There's one big and one small, one big and one small. So if you succeed in getting them both on, you know you've done it right. In terms of getting the right positive and negative in there. So let me get the big one on the big one. It should go on nice and firm because we don't want it to slip off. And get this one on here as well. There we go, it feels nice and firm as well. If it's slippery, I'll get a pair of pliers, just give this a little squeeze while it's on, so that it'll just kind of firm it up. So now, we've got our wires connected, speaker on the bracket, we've got our plug coming out the front, so let's go ahead and put this thing in and see how it does. So let's get these screws, and just kind of put this in by hand, starting off with. Find the hole. We can find a hole. Here we go. So what I like to do at this point is to not tighten it down, leave it kind of loose, so that way you have time, you have a way to slide it around, get that last hole to line up, because it wasn't drilled very perfectly. I'm just using this screwdriver just to get it started. I'll get my custom hole over here, which may take a little bit of work to get it in. This one, it's going all right. So now I got that one in and started. It feels good. I go ahead and tighten it down. And you want to be careful not to, either when you mount the speaker into the bracket, don't over tighten that at all. You got to be kind of gentle with it because you'll strip out the plastic and now your bracket's no good for you. So don't over tighten these things as you're putting them together. You can get the bracket on here tighter than you can to the door, tighter than you can the speaker on the bracket. So now we got our speaker and bracket and gasket all mounted in really good there. Now all that's going to do is to go ahead and connect these two wires up. Snap, we're good to go. And that'll sit like that when we get the door put back together. So what I'd like to do at this point is to go ahead and let's power the system up and make sure our speaker works before we put the door panel on and realize we got to take it back off. So let's take a quick break and turn this thing on and see how it does. Okay, I've tested it out and we got sound coming out of here. It sounds all right. So now let's start putting things together. This wire is hanging out kind of uncomfortably long. Tucked a little bit in, that's probably fine like that, so it's just not so floppy. Now we're going to go ahead and bring the door card back out. We'll reattach our wires, reattach our handle, hook it on the top, and pop it back in. You can see where these holes are. Okay, before we put the door panel back on, what we need to do is to look to see if any of the snaps did not come off. So let's take our door card, flip around and take a look at it. And you can see there's one here. Oh, we're missing one right here. Got one, got one, got one, got one, got one, and got one. So we're missing one here. So when we flip this around, that would map to here on the door. So here's a missing pop that did not come out. So I'm going to take my vinyl lever tools here and see if I can get those things out. These tend to be a little bit difficult to get out, so I have to give it a good tug. It actually came out way easier than I thought it would. So now that I've got this, let's slide this back into the door card, and it goes right here. So I'm just going to slide it in like that. It kind of snaps in, and then we're good to go. Okay, so now we're going to put the door card back on the door, and the first thing I'd like to do is to go ahead and get our door handle put into the hole. If you remember, we had these two screws here and this little plastic holder. So let's go ahead and take these two screws out. And again, let's hold the holder. You want to put the screws in your mouth, whatever it is, to hold the holder in the right orientation. And let's work on getting this handle here popped back in. If you're wondering if you have it in right, just come and take a look at it from this side. It'll be pretty obvious whether or not you got it right. Okay, I got it. I lost track of the orientation. That clip. Go get these tightened up. Again, not too tight. Don't want to strip out the plastic. Be gentle with it. Okay, now that we got the door handle attached, if you ever wonder if you got it seated in properly, you will notice it goes under these white hangers. But again, just take a look at it from this side right here and you can see if you got it. So now we want to reconnect our wiring harness in here. So that just should kind of If you line up the door naturally where the holes, these things should kind of fall into place all by themselves. Again, be gentle with it. Snap it in. Make sure you haven't pulled out the plastic covering. Stick it back on this tar stuff here on the top. If you have pulled out a little bit too much, go ahead and hook it on the top and let it push it down, but you still got the bottom hanging out. So if you got that in and you feel like it's settled in good, then we'll move around to this side, the inside part of the door, and give it a good push and snap it back into place. Okay, so now I'm going to move my toolbox out of the way. I'm just going to kind of support it so it doesn't hang on the wires too much. I'm going to look at it and make sure this is sitting good, that the two inside and outside weather stripping line up to make sure we're in it. And then just start giving a good push and it should snap in. And just check to make sure that's sitting in, if there's no big gap in there. And you're basically good at this point. Just a couple of screws to go. Okay, so one of the last two screws I'm going to put in here in this handle cavity. Drop the screw in. I'm going to give a door a bit of a gentle push to get it to two holes to line up here. Push it in a little bit. There we go. Now it screws in nice and smooth. If it looks like it's too tight going in, you're threading it wrong. Now we just push that little door down, nice and flat. And there we go. One more screw to go. Okay, last screw. This hole should line up. Throw it in there. Goes in fairly simple. And you feel it tighten up. Because you're going in the middle there, you can give it a good twist. And this little door cover thing did come out, so I'm going to push it back in here through the hole on the left and give it a little close and a push toward the right. And there we are. We're as good as new. This door is now done.